this session, is revolving around, as we discussed, it's a 3-day program. It'll be revolving around product development, and more importantly, also today is going to be more of a overall framework that we will talk, and also kind of a Q&A that I would like to do to understand where and what type of projects you're doing. Tomorrow is going to be specifically focusing on, we'll have another expert who will join us tomorrow, who is, an expert on Git as well as version controlling and DevOps, right? So especially if you're looking at building a product that has the complete software stack, or it has, the layers in terms of your product development, then you will be kind of able to understand the challenges that you would face and how you could mitigate that, especially if you're in these times when we are working remotely across, what you say, locations, and we don't really have access to a lab or something like that that we do. So it would be necessary for you to have these tools and softwares in place to keep the control of what is being developed, what is finished and what is not finished, all of that, right? So that is something that we will be discussing tomorrow, and today will be a overall I'm going to give you an overall framework so that you can start putting down points regarding your project, where you are, what is missing, what you need to add. And then you can ask me specific questions and I can guide you regarding that. And then on the third day, that is day after tomorrow, we will look at the, what you say, management standpoint in terms of communication between teams, how best we can use it. And also we look at, how we can take it to implementation and after implementation, right? So because one is launching the product, developing it. The second thing is, testing it into the market. And the third thing is after implementing, after testing it, once you deploy, what are the stages that are involved in that, and how we can, do after sales support, as well as how do we prepare for the next version of the product, right? So that is something that we will do, mainly because as we start, I think, I don't know, some of you might have also attended my previous session. I keep stressing on the point that we need to have a very specific feature or very specific problem statement to first of all solve, right? So once we're clear about that, what we choose, what we don't choose, is becomes very important in product development, right? So with that, I'd like to kind of, I don't know, I think Sahan and Akhil, thank you so much for keeping the group together. And you might be having certain questions for today. So I'd like to kind of understand, where do we start? What is it that you're looking for? So that, because we've already lost some time. So I want to kind of understand, not go too much into theory, and directly, kind of step into actionables, so that, if somebody could give me some inputs on what you're looking, maybe you can drop a chat also. Then it will be helpful for me to kind of restructure the course for today, and we can start interacting. Because product development lifecycle is a huge field on its own, and also it involves various elements of thing, right? So I'd like to specifically understand, is it more driven by software, more driven by hardware? What is it that you want to do, so that we can structure that around that? Am I audible?
Yes, Arvind, you're audible.
Yeah, please go ahead, please tell me. Any questions you people have, or anything that we want to specifically discuss, we can do that right away. First of all, this cohort people, have you attended any of the previous sessions, or this is the first session you're attending with me, or with regards to this particular topic, like a design thinking, or things like that? Was it something that you have gone through before, or if we are ready with an MVP, right? So this is Dev, okay. So people, just let me know, were you part of the previous session that we did, where we discussed about product features? And yes, sir, uh, we attended the features workshop and business model canvas. Yes, okay, awesome, okay, great. So most of you are coming from there, right? Okay, great. Okay, I see so many. Yes, okay. Great. Okay, now it makes sense. So I can kind of work through that and take it forward. Hmm. That's great. So those of you who were not part of the previous session, I know you can always watch up the videos and everything. But essentially, what we discussed is a very logical set of points that we were kind of doing, right? So we said if you have an idea, how do we go about the design thinking process, right? So this is what we kind of discussed. So in this process of design thinking, we did empathy, define, then we ideated. Essentially, what we did is we defined the problem statement, then we ideated on how we can take the solution to market, right? Not ideating on what we should do, right? Or what project we should do, but more so focused on ideating on what features to have and take it to market. And then comes the stage of prototyping, right? So we kind of looked at prototyping in a very specific manner where we said that a prototype is not necessarily um, okay. Somebody says my voice is not clear. Am I audible, people?
Yes, Arvind, I think you are audible very well.
So
Okay.
you're audible.
Yeah. Maybe somebody else, the person who's having issue, maybe it's their connectivity issue. I'm assuming. I'm not sure. So anyway, if there is any problem, just let me know. So uh, we were at prototype stage. Like yesterday or the previous session, we were typically revolving around prototype, and the definition of the prototype or what we mean by prototype was clearly kind of discussed. Right? What we discussed was prototype means a validation point. It is not necessarily a product. It is not necessarily something which does everything or which has all the functionalities of a product. But then when you put all the parts of a prototype together, right, and that is when we kind of start arriving at what we call as a MVP, right? So that's where we were, and I think the question that somebody was asking also was around that, right? So somebody had a clear question saying, if Dev, if we are ready with the MVP, then how to decide on the pricing, right? So product development is one aspect, pricing, sales, and after sales is another aspect, right? So we'll arrive at pricing, and I think pricing was also discussed in terms of the previous BMC, where we spoke about the revenue and cost, right? So very simple way of determining how we can price a product is by the BMC, where you know your costs first, right? You know what is it that you are actually what do you say spending, right? Either for your resources or for your partners, key partners, or in the supply chain that you have, as well as the products or the hardware or the equipment or the capex, what we call as the resources in terms of what resources in terms of ecosystem, right? So there are three costs typically people will have, right? One of the primary cost is your resources, that is your people cost, the core team, right? That is one cost, which is kind of a fixed cost. And we don't keep adding the cost over and over again. The second cost, which is the most important that you need to watch out for, is a variable cost. That is, as and when you make a product, and if you make 100 products, then the cost of the product keeps adding, right? So, for example, if you're making cars, right? So if you have to make 100 cars, the investment that you need for making 100 cars is much higher than making one car, obviously, right? So that cost is the what we call as BOQ or BOM, bill of material or bill of quantities. That is something that you need to be very, very clear. And even in software, you need to be very clear of the cost that comes in. For instance, we can say even in software development, for example, if you have database, right? So you have a DB and cloud. So as you scale, your cost will keep going up. So there will be a certain cost which is based on a linear or a exponential model that people will say there is a base cost. Say you pay $100 first, and then for every further subscription you pay $10, and so on and so forth. And if the subscription is more, you have 10,000 users, then per user you pay $5, or per GB you pay $5 and $4 and so on and so forth. So this cost becomes very important for you to know, because you're developing the product, right? So if you're developing the product, there are two things that you need to look at. One, you need to look at whether the product is going to work, and most of us are going to be in that stage now. So this pricing and costing will come in the second stage, where in the product development cycle, there is the initial stage and then there's a maturity stage, right? So at that stage, these are the things that you would be wanting to look at. At this point, you don't have to look at that costing specifically yet, right? However, uh, oops. Is my screen visible? Yeah. So, however, the you should still be kind of aware of the three basic cost structures. Cost of your resources is essentially a fixed cost, right? People and space and rent and all of that you pay, right? So then the other one is a variable or product based cost, which is essentially your bill of material or your operational expense on the product, each product cost. Then the third cost is cost of partners, right? Like what you say, key partners. So in your process, what you already have and your vendors or things like that, that cost you need to watch out for. And only then you can go out and start making your case for your getting the product to market, right? So that's something that we can look at in detail, maybe once you have the project in place, right? So any other question, people? You have somebody said about cost. Now that is something that you have to evolve with, right? Any other question regarding product development that you have specifically that you can ask me right now? Hello. Okay. I guess with reference to scalability, how to decide between web and desktop app? Okay. Then, with reference to scalability, what is the assumption that we should start with? Okay, this is a very good question. I think let us start building up. See, this one is I wanted to kind of keep it open-ended, because the technical aspect of the session is going to be tomorrow, especially those who are building software. Please don't miss it. So now I'm going to reuse this slide. So the question here is one with reference to scale, right? What is the assumption? What is the assumptions we should make, right? So first and foremost, let us actually rapid prototype the problem statement of building up the thing, right? So what we did, step one, right? Step one, we did empathy, then we defined and then we ideated and we created a prototype, right? And so on and so forth. We kept doing this until we reached step 2, that is many prototypes plus validation gives a set of final priority list of features. Is this clear? This is this is what we did next, right? So once you have this priority list of features, now let us look at this. I don't know if you people already have this, right? So in step 3, now we are kind of getting into that stage where we have this priority list of features, which kind of now becomes A, will they pay? B, which one is no go, right? What I mean by that no go is if this is not there, your product will not exist. Okay. So if you once you determine this, will they pay and how much? See, this might not be a very important question, right? But when we're talking of product, it kind of becomes very important because now I'm not talking about prototype, right? I'm talking about going to market. So once you're going into market, which one is a no-go? Is the question that you're asking. What I mean by that is if that feature is not there, people will not buy my product. That's very clear. And next question is to answer Dev's question also. How do you price? The MVP is very simple. If you're doing a particular product and if I give you a pen and if you can't go and price the pen at 5,000 rupees until unless you have a backup to kind of prove that point, right? Similarly, what is the value proposition or the value perception of the customer is very important here. Once that is clear, I want you to very clearly list that down first and then only get into what the step 3 essentially will lead you to what we call as MVP, right? So essentially we kind of determine what our product is going to be. A minimum viable product is what we're going to be, right? So once you have that, then you start the product development lifecycle, right? Then you do the PDLC, you start. Until then, you actually don't start, right? So now, question of scale and what assumption should we make? I will answer that question in a bit. I just wanted to bring you the flow of things. So I'm going to answer this question through this, right? Through the session itself, by kind of walking you through this. So here we have, with reference to scalability, then there's another question. Who's this? Prashant is asking. People, if you are going to message, please message to everybody so that everybody can interact. Because if you're not speaking up, then the messages that you send, I would rather prefer you people to send it to the entire group so that everybody can understand what we are discussing. Okay. But anyway, I'm going to read out this question. We are using a low-code solution for building an MVP. Okay. That has a history of supporting large-scale applications, more than 1 lakh users. Since it is easier to iterate and push updates on a low-code platform, would you suggest to go forward with that for the basis of a product, or should we hard code the entire thing? Okay, that is one question. Okay, should we not avoid pricing until the testing phase to avoid anchoring? Okay, so what is PDLC? Product Development Lifecycle. Okay, PDLC is I just and that is a life cycle of a product. How do you develop it and take it to market? That's the whole topic that we are discussing today, right? Essentially from idea to market. That's what we are trying to kind of put together, right? So in this process now, what's the question? Should we avoid pricing? No, no, no. See, pricing is arrived at as I think everybody is kind of talking about costing. So let me kind of be very clear, right? So pricing comes from two sides, right? It's always a two-pronged strategy or a approach that you will have to take, right? One is how much, like, let me open another slide for your pricing. Actually, a lot of people are talking about it. So, guys, I'm going to keep it a little, what you say, uh, unstructured today because we've lost some time. If I go through a structural thing, then again you'll all get bored, and I don't think I'll be able to add value. So I think this is okay. But if you think that we are digressing or if it's not meaningful, please take liberty to stop me and ask me or something like that. Or I am giving you all the freedom because it's important that all of you get some benefit out of this session today, right? So cost. What do you mean by cost, right? So is how much you are spending to get something out, right? So revenue is how much you are earning, right? So these are the two important things that you need to watch out for before you can price your product, right? So revenue essentially involves a part of the revenue is the money that you get for selling your product, right? So the question here is, should we avoid pricing until testing phase to avoid anchoring? So I don't know what you mean by anchoring, Rahul, but essentially, you know, we
Uh,
don't.
so the point of anchoring is, if you throw out a particular price in the beginning itself, people tend to, stick to that particular price regardless of if you add more features in the future. So should we
Well,
not?
see, it depends. It depends. See, there's a fundamental assumption you're making here, Rahul, is that you are in the market means that everybody knows you and the whole world knows about your product, right? That's what you think it is, which is not necessarily true. It, when we, for instance, let me take our example. When we launched the Brahma 3 3D printers, we were the first to, kind of develop a indigenous machine in India, and back in 2013, we launched it as a sub 1 lakh rupees industrial grade printer, right? But then today, we don't have a product of that price, right? So initially it was a very clear welcome offer or an introductory offer where people did not even know what a 3D printer is and things like that. But today our product is, even the base version as well as a couple of other enhancements that we have, are priced differently. So that is why I said, I don't know what product that you're building, Rahul. So essentially, if you are in a software or if you are in a B2C kind of a thing where you're an education platform or
Yes, sir. We're a web app we're basically a coding assignment evaluation platform.
okay, so who's your customer?
We're right now targeting universities as such because they're the ones who will be paying. The users, on the other hand, will be the teachers as well as the students.
Correct, but then who pays the
University, the
so
university man.
obviously, you see, in your case, it's a clear case, Rahul. So because you are doing a B2B, right?
Yeah,
Am I right? Is that
yeah,
clear?
correct. That's what.
So B2B pricing is always obscure and confidential. So you're done with it, right? So basically, you don't have to worry.
Okay,
So
sure.
essentially, in B2B, you first of all, this case of anchoring doesn't happen because you don't go and publish. Say you're in B2C, for instance, right? Then you're in trouble because you go out and say, here is an apple and this apple is 1 rupee, and you're done, right? So then you cannot go to another supermarket and sell the same apple for 10 rupees with your brand on it because it's going to be a thing. So that is why we typically, in case of even in B2C, to keep it obscure, pricing is always an obscure point, right? So you don't want people to kind of anchor, like, people don't want to, you want people to kind of get fixated on something and say, you gave it to me for that. And so essentially, that's why, if you've noticed, the general trend in B2C also is there is an MRP, then there is a discount and offers. Right? So this is all to protect you, right? In business, this is all of this is done so that you as a business is protected from getting stuck with low margins, right? So once you have an MRP, typically this MRP again, see, actually this is not a discussion about pricing per se, but then it's an interesting topic. So let's do it because I also have another session day after tomorrow where we can look at product development in detail also, right? So for all of you who are wondering about pricing and who are wondering about what should we do, first and foremost, MRP. What is MRP? Maximum retail price. That's something that you as a manufacturer or you as a core product owner, and this is more relevant for products that is on the B2C platform, right? Physical products typically, but even otherwise, the price that you offer, even if you're offering a web service, for instance, or if you're offering a software service or something like that, for instance, even as simple as a domain, right? You go to any domain, you want to buy a URL, it says that it is 899, but you get it for 2 years and you get it for 499 a year. So that's what they say typically, right? So that's how pricing works. So where you go and how do you determine this price, right? So like for Dev or anybody who was asking that question already, the MRP is determined by, in the previous slide we were talking about, how many will they pay and how much. This question is something that you need to continuously keep asking and answering. And there is a hint for that, right? So the hint or the way you look at it is similar products, precedents, right? Or breakthrough feature, or what we call as like a wow factor, or you can say, or anything, you can name it whatever you want, but I'm just saying. So the breakthrough feature. So either of these two things should be there. And this breakthrough feature is not something that you think it is a breakthrough, but that feature is something that does not exist anywhere. And you know for a fact with your design thinking process that this feature is going to give me a lot of revenue because people want it, right? So that's what it is. So once you're clear about this, you go and build your MVP, which essentially just talks either about this breakthrough feature or main problem and or the one thing is what I usually call it, right? The one thing that is which is a key differentiator of your product, or now that I've used the word breakthrough and or the breakthrough feature. That's it, right? That's all your MVP should have. It should not have more than that. And typically, maybe some of you don't even have this, which is okay, but you still know very clearly what is the main problem you're solving, and that is there in that has a single feature or one set of features to solve it. Once that is done, only then you proceed towards the development of the product, right? So, Rahul, is that clear? Your question clear now? In terms of costing,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
you don't have to worry about it. And also, let me then give you a little more context, right? When we come to the product development cycle, the context here is, first, the market, right? So here the cost also is driven by the market. So market is what? So you don't go and say it's the world, right? You never go and say that the whole world is my market. So essentially, we go out and do maybe an alpha, then we do a PHA, right? Alpha, then we do a beta, and then we do a soft launch, then we do a geography or a demography, and then so on and so forth you scale, right? So it's not like Are you clear? This is typically how nobody goes here and says that I'm a global product, right?
Correct, sir. That makes sense. Yeah.
So nobody, I can't go and launch. Maybe your website is global. I agree. abcd.com is I agree is global, but nobody will go visit ABCD unless you get there, right?
Yes.
So you don't really have to worry about getting that issue. Don't think about it. On the flip side, what you should actually worry about is all of this is done. Right. So all of this is done. Say these are the stages we have. This comes much later. Okay. So first of all, let's be clear that this is much later. Here, even this is later. B2C, B2B is later. At this stage, cost stage, most important is I'll put in layman terms, your investment. Investment, again, you will get confused. Your buying price. Let's go back to school, right? So is very important. If you know this, and buying prices, typically, let's forget we are all entrepreneurs and all of that, and we are working for free. The team is working for free, and everybody is working for free, right? But still, you will not get your hardware, manufacturing, packaging for free. You will not get. So this cost is one, right? Primary. Call it as primary. And that to what? This cost is not for everything, for each product. Buying price, let me say, be more specific, for each unit of your product. Okay, you need to know. Okay, this is very. Now, this is for hardware. Now, people might ask, what about software, right? Software also the same story, right? DB cost, server cost, not DB, let me call it a server. If you're on the cloud, and any other transactional cost and all of that, right? Transaction and so on and so forth. These costs are very, very important. On top of that, you have your initial. You might work for free, right? Because you're the founder and maybe your friends and initial team might work for free. So you all can go without salary. But your initial cost, right? For example, you need to buy a license for developing a certain solution, right? If you cannot buy the license, then you have to rent it, or you will also do what you call as third party. Right? So what I mean by third party, it is your key partners. So if you've done the BMC, you know why key partners becomes very important is that initial cost, I would call it as, in technical terms, we call it as CapEx. Right? So this is capital expenditure. You need to invest, like for example, machinery for manufacturing, right? So these things typically we don't invest, right? Typically we don't invest, but what we do is, what's the spelling of machinery? Factory, whatever. So this we don't typically invest. So what we do is we amortize, right? That is, we go and tell that if we, I don't know, my spellings are all way off today. So we go and say that I'll buy 1,000 pieces from you. You give it to me for this much price, right? And then you put that cost into your product, right? So for instance, if you buy a license for 100 rupees and your product cost is 10 rupees, you need to sell, and if you put 1 rupee of the license cost on every product, if you sell 100 products, then 1 rupee each, you will recover your initial capex on the license. Do you understand? So that's called amortization. And that is when the question of, that is when you can decide how do you determine scale? Who was this question? So I spoke so much to answer with reference to scalability, what is the assumption we should start with, right? So that was why I started putting out this slide. So I think Namya had asked that question. So you have to be very clear in order to build this first feature set, I am putting in so much of effort, right? So that's the input cost. I have to recover this. So at that stage, if you have invested say 10 lakh rupees, you can't go and say I'm going to sell only 5 products of a phone or a pen and say I'm going to charge each pen 2 lakh rupees. That's not going to work, right? So there is a certain market-driven cost, right? So how much are they willing to pay, right? So that's the revenue, right? So willingness. So you go and willingness willingness to pay, right? So you go and determine this. Typically, for each and every product or solution, you will have a base price, right? So if it's a nice, say you're building a phone, typical price is around 10,000 rupees. Is a decent entry level phone that you can price it at, right? So let's keep that as a thing. But to do that, if your cost is say 5 lakhs, if your cost is say here initial server cost transaction whatever is say it is going to be 5 lakhs, then you need to at least think about how many phones can you sell at 10,000 rupees where your bill of material cost, that is cost of buying everything or individual product, is say 8,000 rupees or say 3,000 rupees, right? Or say 7,000 rupees. 7k is your bill of material, then plus you are spending say on the license which is about 5 lakhs. So now you can load say I will load say 2,000 rupees on the initial pieces, and then I will keep a margin of something else whatever. I'm going to keep a margin of say another 5,000 rupees, so I'm going to sell my product at 12k, right? Say this is what you start with. So this 2K divided by, so how much is it? 5 lakhs divided by 2,000, right? So that many units minimum you have to sell to break even, right? So you first then determine, so how much is, can somebody tell me how much is 5 lakhs divided by 2,000? Don't know. So you go and determine those are the number of pieces that I need to minimum sell, right?
250.
Sorry.
250, sir. 250.
Yeah, okay, cool. No, I was just checking if you people are there. Great. So, so you need to sell a minimum of 250 pieces. Who it is, right? Uh, Namya, you need to then plan for 250 units minimum into, say whatever is the cost. So 12,000 is your thing. So you need to plan a revenue of this much, right? So that becomes extremely important for you to see. So where and how much, that is the initial scale of the product plan for. That's phase one of your plan, right? Is that clear now? Any questions here? Okay, so this should be your market cap or market size that you need to go and look out for, right? And once you're clear about this amount, whatever it is, so then you go and work backwards and say, okay, I need to build this as my phase one, and so on and so forth. So once that is clear, you will be able to go back and do the next feature. So this is typically how we work, right? So first we see what is the stock. Like for example, if we are doing sanitizers, for instance, right? That's one of the businesses that we do. So we need a specific kind of a bottle or a pump or something like that, right? So they say that for this spray pump that you want in a particular size and shape, you need to buy 10,000 units, right? So that's what they say. Otherwise, the price is going to be three times or four times. Instead of paying like 7 rupees or 6 rupees for the pump, I'll end up paying 25 rupees. So which is non-viable for us. So we then plan for 10,000 units and then work backwards to see, how much or who could be the base, who could be the customers that we can target, and then go to the market. Is that clear? So this is what I wanted to kind of right. So now where are we? Should we not avoid pricing until it's done? Now here we are using a code-based solution for MVP. See, this again is something that becomes a very important question to ask. What is it that we need to use? And to answer that question also is an architecture level question that somebody is asking. You know, what to choose and what not to choose. I would typically choose a certain base. Like for example, Rahul was talking about a particular university. Right? It's a very classic case where you have. So it's a classic case where you essentially have one customer, which is a persona, right? Or a vertical, right? So very, very important. So one customer, which typically falls under a clear persona or a clear vertical. So in Rahul's case, it is a university, not necessarily university. I am assuming it's a undergrad college, right? Like a BTech or something
Yes,
like
sir.
that. It's not
That's
a
right.
university. University is a much more larger town. So it's a college. Essentially, you're reaching out to a college, which means you need to first figure out and work through uh, the requirement for a typical base, what do you say, capacity of usage, right? You need to be clear that okay, I'm going to have 2,000 users, and I'm going to have maybe so many clicks or so many GB of storage, and blah blah blah, so on and so forth. These are the basic feature set, right? So to cater to this particular persona or a vertical segment. Once you have this, say you will arrive at a certain cost for this for each undergrad college. I need a total cost and these feature set of say about I'll say 50,000 rupees is what you will need to set up, right? So then you go out and say I'm going to charge say 1.5 lakhs or whatever to test the market, and maybe you give a discount, blah blah blah, and you eventually sell it at 1 lakh. So you have a decent margin, right? So in order to do this test now and also answer Abhi's question, what I would do, Abhi, who is that Prashant's question, I would then decide what kind of software architecture is easy to go. You remember we had done that slide, where complexity versus, I don't know where that is, whether it's in this. Let me find it actually. Right. So we're discussing about this, right? There was a particular slide, this one, right? So very specifically, we were talking about this features versus complexity and all of that, right? So if you look at that, we kind of, looked at this element, right? So with this, what are the basic features that you need to do, and what is it that you add? You put that together, and you determine the cost, right? Once you're clear with that, you then decide what to use, right? For example, he was asking whether I should use a low code or whether I should use some other architecture or whatever. All these technical aspects, the decision making revolves around the customer, right? Does not revolve around the problem statement or that you're trying to solve, right? Because the same problem can be solved multiple ways. How I would build a product is, obviously I can't build a product for something that is of global scale, right? I don't want, for instance, let me take the example again of say the business that we are doing right now, a sanitizer, or education business of, say, I'm making Arduino boards, let us say. So there are various ways of making an Arduino board. It's not like I make a board which, first and foremost, whether I'm selling it within directly to colleges, then there's a particular packaging is enough. If I'm shipping it, then a particular packaging is needed. If I'm exporting it, then ROHS is needed. Then I need EMC clearance. I need a EU certification or a what do you say, the US FCC, right? So you need a FCC or you need a EU and all of those things. So now I can't sit and wait until I get all of these certifications so that I can sell it to my person who's sitting next to me. Do you understand? So that clarity of scale is very important before you get started. So clarity of scale is very important. So how do you achieve that clarity of scale? Is simple. Actually, it's not very complicated at all. So for example, for Rahul's case, because he spoke up, I'm just taking his example here. It's very, very clear that we go, say you are based in Bangalore. I don't know where you are, but if you're based in Bangalore, there might be about 20 to 40 engineering colleges that you might be interested. There might be 100 colleges. I'm saying, 20 to 40 is something that is reachable. And in this, maybe typically in this first year of operations, you might want to convert about 5 to 7 of them, right? So, and if you're pricing it at, say, 1 lakh, your turnover for this year is, say, about, so let's be optimistic and say, let's say 10 lakhs, because you'll upsell to some people. This is your turnover. So now, if you're earning 10 lakhs and if your base cost is X, then maybe you're willing to invest about 3 lakh rupees right now. Then you say, in 3 lakhs, my investment. So cost. So here I say, can I build all features that are important? Answer would be yes. Right? If not, then you need to go back and get to that number, right? And then, is it sustainable? reliable, and scalable. This is the next set of questions that you ask. What I mean by this is, if the customer buys, what is the life of the product? Am I audible, people?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay, great. So what is the life of the product? You need to determine. So if you're putting that software into whatever is a software solution or whatever solution it is it going to be, is it going to be for 1 year or say 3 years, right? 1 to 3 years is the viability of the product. What I mean by sustainable is very clear, that it should work with that database, with that student user base and everything for that 1 to 3 years, right? It's reliable, obviously it doesn't crash for 3 years. That means when you're choosing the low code or high code or the plugins and everything, you need to understand that the upgrades that go on those things should be something that can last you, or you can go to the base version and manage with that, right? The product should not crash. Then the third point, which is like scalable, is a bigger question mark, where if you want to change the architecture or if you want to expand on a certain feature set, does it allow it or not? If the answer is no, then it's okay, right? This one thing can be no, but these two should can be no, but these two should be a yes for sure, right? Both of these must be a yes before you can get into ops, right? Once you have these two, that is sustainable and reliable for the period that you choose the life of your product as, then it's okay. Scalable means the customer will come back and say, I want to do attendance management. I want to do that. I want to do this. Does it allow for that or not? If it does not allow for it, then you start planning for version 2, or rates, right? And these should go in as dollars, not free. Your sustainable reliability that you promise for the life of the product should be free of cost. You cannot, you should have included. What I mean by free of cost is that it should already be included in the cost that you are initially proposing to the customer, because you go and say it's a 1 year warranty or a 2 year warranty, unlimited users, right? If you go and say, you already know that that college has 3,000 users, it cannot go beyond that, right? So that's why you said unlimited. And these are things you should be prepared for before you go and announce. If these things are kind of meeting your expectation, and you are based in Bangalore and you're going to sell it to Bangalore colleges first, because I don't think you can make a digital sale of a product like this. So it might be difficult. I'm not this product, I'm just guessing whichever product it is. Then you say that I can probably reach out to 20 to 40 colleges, and in that I might be able to convert 5 to 7. And then I'm going to charge X amount of money. Maybe it could be 10 lakhs or 100 lakhs. I don't know what's the product about, but I'm just, for math's sake, I have put in some numbers here. And then you go. So this is the planning stage, right? This is where you go and determine what to build and what not to build. So to summarize, before I summarize, is there any other question, or did I make my point clear here, people?
Sir, I have a doubt.
Yes,
Sir,
please.
initially we started with sketching the scalability of the product, right? So, like,
Okay.
if it's not like now the recent slide, like if it's not scalable, then like
Right. So,
yeah,
okay. So, what is your project about? Let us be specific here. What are you doing? Like, I can guide you then. I can tell you what I mean
okay.
by this, because it's very generic, right? Not sorry, it's not generic. It's very specific to each product that you are trying to build, or each solution you are trying to build. It's very specific. So, how can you uh, decide where is the end, right? Because otherwise, what happens? You get carried away. The biggest challenge with product development is that, something that I always tell is, don't add the features, right? One. Second thing I tell is don't make it as expensive to build. Very important, right? Then rest of the things you can follow. But these two are like golden rules. Very, very important, right? So if these two pass, then determine with the base features what is the market you have. That's it. And then capture it. Then we'll see next later. Yeah, that's all. So now, yes, now you can ask me a question, Avni.
So basically, like our project is a service. We'll provide services. It's we are building an app, oblique website, like Urban Clap.
Okay.
So, like for to measure its scalability, we have to firstly ensure that we have enough amount of database of workers in the area we are starting.
So that
And the
is, see,
second,
that is something to do with your market research and something to do with determining the.
so, sir, in
Yeah.
this like because it's a service based project, so like how do we measure the scalability?
Correct. So very simple. Which city are you in right now?
Pune.
Pune. And how many pin codes are there in Pune?
There are many, I guess, 30
Okay,
plus.
so
Yeah.
whatever. But do you have access to all the pin codes with the database of users that you have?
Yes, we have researched on the Maharashtra government's website. There's a list of pin codes, and
No, no, no,
currently I'm
pin codes
working
fine.
in my
I'm
pin
not
code
asking you
only.
about pin codes. I'm asking you
I'm
about serviceability from your side. Do you have the capability to service that?
like now I have just started. Like basically in my pin code area, I have a database of workers and
Okay,
also the people
correct,
who
correct.
would.
So now
Yeah.
what is your question? So now you have identified one or two pin codes. Okay, done. And you have started to physically get some database of both customers as well as service providers. Correct? That's what you're doing, right?
Yes, sir.
Correct. Now, so now what is the concern you have with scale? Where are you getting stuck? Is it on the software side you're asking, or on the actual deployment side of the actual project?
Hello.
Yeah, tell me.
Sir, actually in the feasibility, I did not understood the fourth step. I
Where is-
asked initially, like in the scale, the PDLC one.
Okay. This one? No, this I've not yet written. This is, I'm saying
Oh,
after you determine this, you start the product development life cycle. I'm not even, you now start. All this storytelling that I did, step 1, 2, 3, you don't have to even build your product. That's what I'm saying. You don't do anything. You just understand what it is, do your prototypes, determine your features, understand what is your MVP and all of that. Now start building the product to sell, right? This is, or to go to market, right? To sell. Basically, this is a product to sell. What you build now in step 4 will actually be sold. It is not for you to test anything. Do you understand?
okay, sir. Okay.
You understood now? So now your product development will start. Until then, whatever this is still understand till here, till this much what I spoke. You need to be clear, and then you start building. So now the question of scale, Avni, are you trying to ask like what should be the software stack, or what kind of database do I need, or what kind of cloud computing do I need? Is that your question, or uh, how many cities can I go to? Are you asking a question like that or not? That's my question.
Yes, sir. So like initially, we are trying to build it in-house only. So I do not think so we'll directly shift to cloud. So I guess it will be Firebase, like basic Firebase.
Okay,
So
but why are you doing that? That is what my question is. You think,
also,
don't you think
so shall I like outsource or shall we build it in-house? Because currently, as a freshman, we don't have much, technical knowledge.
okay, okay. See, again, that again depends on where what your that go you have to go back to the BMC, right? Whether you can do what's your key resource or what's your key partner question mark, right? That's what you're trying to kind of trying to answer, or we are trying to answer here, right? So what we do at that stage is you go and decide, but then with the life cycle, essentially you're using Firebase or you're using an existing database or a platform, that's fine. So subscription based platform, if you're trying to build or use, you need to first be clear how much you should subscribe for, right? So how much kind of database do you need, or whatever deployment server space you need, that you determine, and based on that you do for that. So, for example, you're in Pune. So, my question to you is, how many users do you think you can add on your platform at a given point in time? Say in 1 year, how many customers do you think you can add?
Sir, we have a list of customers, but we don't have registered. We
Correct.
haven't
I'm
registered
saying,
on our app.
what do you think based on your market understanding? How
Yeah.
many plumbers and how many all of these urban clap providers, type of providers, that is your uh, uh, people, staff, what do you say, um, partners,
Uh,
right? These people, how many of these service providers do you think you can address, or you think you can capture?
Sir, initially, like starting off, we have almost 30 people we have talked to, and
Right.
then we'll increase our
So this is
database.
very small numbers, right? So so
Yeah.
30 can become 300, and your architecture will not change. Even if it becomes 3,000, maybe your architecture will not change. Okay, so a simple website with simple registration and a simple Google Forms and simple things like that is enough to actually
Okay.
build and take this product into the market, because you are
Okay, sir.
not going to have a 50,000 users with the concurrent clicks and with all of these problems. Correct? That's not going to
Yes, sir.
happen.
Yes,
So
sir.
I would say start with a simple website with registration and all of that, with simple drop downs. A simple database structure with drop downs and things like that is enough for you to get your project started, right? So only features that are very important is, are you doing a SMS gateway, or are you doing a chat bot to communicate with the customer? Do you need a call center? What I mean by call center again is, you people only will be taking the phone and talking
Yes.
between them. That's fine. But then that will have a simple, everything will be, you can model it mathematically. What I mean by that is, how to pictorially represent that, I don't know. For every 20 users, let me see if I can explain this to you in product development, how to determine what feature to choose, right? So here, say I'm going to have, like you mentioned, you have 30 users, maybe in 1 year, uh, you will go up to say 3,000 users, right? So that is what you want to do. This is an assumption. Now, how many times, how many times will the customer will each customer use a service in a week? Do you have an answer for this?
Sir, currently we are focusing more on maids, cleaning maids, and also I guess
Okay.
5 to 6 times.
5 to 6.
5 to 6 times a week, like we require a
No,
maid.
but they will not subscribe every day. No, they'll not call
Yeah,
you
yeah.
every day.
No, that's
So how
not what
many
I meant.
times will they subscribe to a service?
Like all these services, I guess they will be single time only, like the
Correct.
maid service at least.
Correct now. So
Yes.
so that's it. So then it's very simple, right? So they will do. That means even if you have 3,000 users today, you are not, and in a month, so you can expect the 3,000 users to say you add 100 users a week. 100 users a week. Even if you add 100 users a week, you are going to have only. Let's be optimistic. They'll subscribe for. You are able to hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
200 services a week, which means 200 calls. Right? So let us even say 200. Okay, let's make it 3 times 600 interactions. This is like on the upper side, right? So, which means that even if you go at this rate, I don't think you will go at this rate. You will be adding maybe 10 to 20 users a week, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you will be adding maybe same number of service providers a week. So the interaction on the website will be close to about 10, 10 to 20 fractions a week. On the website. So this is a very simple website. So I think you can even start with a simple forms with some kind of SMS gateway and a simple what you call as a call center, right? Or a chatbot or a chat service. Forget call center. If you have this much, as your basic product building feature set, the number of messages we are expecting, interactive messages we are expecting is 20 interactions. And if each interaction is going to take about 5 to 10 minutes for your person, 5 to 10 minutes. This is very important, people, for all of you to understand what you're building, right? So use this as an understanding how you can take. So 5 to 10 minutes of interaction into 20 interactions, right? So how many minutes of time? That is, let us say 10 into 20. So that is about 200 minutes, as simple as that. So 200 minutes is close to about 20 minutes a day is enough. 20 minutes of support a day is enough for you to 20 minutes of support a day. So this is good enough. So now even if you go and scale to 3,000 users, your technology stack like a simple automated chatbot can easily handle say 5,000 users on your platform.
Okay. Because
And
sir, I was really like tensed, like how to start and kya karu kya nahi.
so because
Uh,
what you will think is, oh, okay, now I'm going to get to 50,000 users, 1 million users, and so many interactions, nothing doing, right? So you don't even need a payment gateway here, right? Because you can just give a standard barcode or something like that, and then scan it to your account.
oh
And
yes. Yeah.
right? So you can get started with it, right? Or pay after use. You can ask that particular person to deposit. Person who's going to the house to deposit money with you, and once they collect the money, you give them back the money by keeping your commission, right? So all of these methods you can choose. And for your product, I don't think you can immediately start because the features are done and the scale is done. So this is all I would look for. Same thing I told Rahul also. So like if they are looking for 7 to 8 colleges, what is the basic features you need? What is the database you need? What is the hardware you need? What are the stuff you need? Just plan for that. That is phase one of your product development cycle. Finish that, and then Then based on the feedback you get, add features to your product, and then go and then go, right? So this is how we will structure it. Now, during this process, you will be building the software, right? So from 30 users, you just start, say, for example, 30 users, you just start like very basic. Then you will then build it for, say, 100 users. So this is the backend development activity you're doing, right? Development activity. For that, you need to have version control on your code. You cannot just go and deploy like that, right? So version control is needed, and then phase deployment is needed. Deployment is needed. So basically what we do is we build a system for, say, 100 users, and then you're upgrading something, like you're changing the database table, or you're changing the something functional on your system. So we go and back it up as a certain version, and then deploy this, test it, make sure it's working, and then integrate this. Then we batch wise you give one more feature, one more feature. It's not like you just go and release that feature to everybody, right? So that happens. So for instance, you can program it in a way that only new users entering your system will get access to the chatbot. All the old users, they don't get an upgrade. Only the new people, when they download the app first time, they will get that feature. For the old people, it is still the same. So things like that, you can kind of structure it in a way and then start making your releases into the system. So if you're aware of the backend process, why you're building this feature, why you're adding, why you're trying to scale, then this market size understanding and your scalability understanding is important. And then you look at architecture. At some stage, maybe you reach 3,000 users or 10,000 users within Pune region, and then you say, I'm going to go to 10 more cities. I'm going to go to Bombay, Bangalore, Hyderabad, blah, blah, blah. That is when your entire overhauling of the architecture will be needed, entire project planning will be needed. So, but by then you would have started earning revenue. By then you would have also understood where to deploy and all of those things. So then you start investing in that first, deploy and develop that completely, and then migrate, right? So that is the last stage of product development where you are scaling to the next, and you keep getting bugs and fixes from the customer end, and you start adding enhancements and pieces. So this is how I would typically look at a product development cycle. Is that clear? So I don't know. I think I've already started late, and I just wanted to kind of summarize everything by opening up a Q&A. So what I can do now is first I want to check with Akhil and Sahan. What do I do? Because I started a little late, so I kind of put it out this way so that in the third session, that is day after tomorrow, I can do the slide and then keep the Q&A shorter and focused. So that's what my plan was. Now, guys, do you want me to continue now, or you think we have already overshot on time? That's what I want to understand, so that I can make up for it maybe tomorrow or day after on certain points that I wanted to cover. So if you have any questions, uh, we can still continue. I don't have a problem. But then maybe some people have to leave and all of that. So just wanted to understand from you people before I kind of maybe extend for another 10-15 minutes. Right? What I'll do, people, is I will still take some basic questions from you people. Yes, somebody speaking. Is Akhil there, or Sahan, or people
Yeah.
participants? You can tell me what do we?
Yeah, Arvind, anything is fine. It's up to the participants. I'm no issues.
Okay,
Maybe
that's
we.
what I'm trying to check with them, because I think almost we lost close to almost an hour we lost to start off. So now we've done about an hour or so now. So either what I can do is I can kind of add in So some people want to break off now. I think, yeah, I don't think it will be fair on me to kind of continue. So what I'll do is I'll take another 5 minutes of your time to kind of, summarize what we spoke, right? So that, we have the prep work for tomorrow, right? So in tomorrow's session, basically, it'll be more of a very technical session where we will be kind of looking at VCS and DevOps. Okay, so that is something to do with software people. It'll be a very technical session. So for tomorrow, I would want you people to not miss it and look at it in detail. And then after that, I will then discuss with you about how do we package this into a more how do you plan your deployment of the project and all of that. Technically, we'll be discussing day after tomorrow. At that stage, I'll also give you the entire overview of the product development life cycle. For instance, tomorrow I'm going to there will be another speaker. His name is Rajesh, who's part of our team. So essentially, we will be looking at version control system, Git. How do you put your code on the Git? Installation guides, getting started, common commands that you can use. So it's more of a technical session tomorrow. And also we're going to kind of look at DevOps. What is, some people were like, you were talking about product as a service or software as a service, how you want to offer it, and then how you can go on the cloud for these services, and what are the tools that you can use. So this is a very powerful session that tomorrow that you can look at purely technical. Once this is through, then most of you who are developing software-based solutions or something which has IoT and cloud-based solutions, you're maintaining your code base, maintaining your database, maintaining your thing deployments, how do you stage it, all those things will be discussed tomorrow in a technical manner. And then day after tomorrow, I'm going to summarize that and then say how we can plan the project launch, right? How we can take it into different tools and softwares that we can use. We are going to put that together and then we are going to end the session. Maybe day after tomorrow, I can give you additional time if you want to do a one-on-one or a question answer, because we lost some time here today. I will be able to cover that up on day after tomorrow. Okay. So with that, I think I would like to kind of let you people go, because already I kind of delayed you people today. So anybody who has specific questions can ask me right now, and maybe you can stay back for 5-10 minutes. And those who want to leave can leave the meeting. Okay, so that's about it. So is there any questions anybody has? Yeah.
Yes,
Hello.
guys, if you have any questions, you can type in the chat or you can unmute yourself and speak up.
Thank you.
Okay, so guys, please do join tomorrow, same time. Send the calendar and other things in the WhatsApp group. Please do join. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Aravind. I think we can close
Thank
the
you.
call. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Also.